So they're like, you have to make some money. Okay, well, how am I going to do that from up here and work in the States when I'm not allowed working in the States? They're like, well, why don't you go on Upwork.com and find something that you can do? I'm like, okay. So I started looking through the jobs and found bookkeeping type jobs. I'm like, I can easily do these from Starbucks. I can figure out wherever while I'm traveling and doing my real estate stuff. And it'll give me some of that US income that I need to be able to apply for the ITIN.
I love bookkeeping.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show. I'm your host, Ben Robinson, and we've got a treat for you today, as we always do. But before we actually get into speaking with our guest, I want to remind you that you can go and find all of our shows at ilovebookkeeping.com. Not only can you find the audio recordings of the shows, you can also find the notes that we have. We've also got a lot of other goodies. We also have an application right there, okay? Be a guest on the I Love Bookkeeping Show. We love to have guests on the show. So please, if you would like to be a guest on there, go and fill that sucker out. We'll take a look at it, see if we can't help you and get you on the show, as well as you can find out about all of our courses. Again, go to ilovebookkeeping.com. Now, today, our guest, he's from Canada. I love having Canadians on our show. It's a wonderful treat. He lives in, where does he live? He lives in Ottawa. He lives in Canada's capital city, the American version of Washington, D.C. He is the owner of Centrozone, which is a one-stop shop for small business owners. He's been involved in many industries over the years. He's worked in different capacities in the IT, business management, real estate rehab, and development property management worldwide. He's been married, going on 11 years, and I had the pleasure of meeting him in Denver just, it was this month. So welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show, Kevin Sterling.
Thanks, Ben. Glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I've never been to Ottawa, but I've heard that it's a great place.
Yeah, nice city.
True?
Our snow's all gone, so that's great.
Yeah, our we never had any snow. We're down here in Atlanta, so, if it snows here, it just stops the world.
Sure.
So, yeah, up there you guys would laugh at what puts us into trauma.
Mm-hmm. Same as Toronto. Toronto gets shut down with a couple of inches of snow. Yeah,
isn't that crazy? It absolutely is. But never been to Ottawa, but I would love to come up there and take a look. Going to Toronto later this year. Well, cool. Let's start talking about your journey into bookkeeping, because you and I shared a little bit when we met in Denver just a couple of weeks ago. But how did you get into, all the different things that you've done here? How did you wind up being a one-stop shop for small business owners and having bookkeeping as part of your suite of services?
So it's a really long story, which I won't go into, but essentially it's kind of started in the IT world, doing help desk support, and I was tired of being the IT guy and getting yelled at all the time. Mm-hmm. So I decided to start looking at different options and different venues. We had started, one of my friends had started a business buying dental practices from retiring dentists. So I kind of started doing the IT stuff for them. And as we grew into that, the business grew and we started going more into business management. And we kind of had the conversation about switching from IT to business at that point. So I started taking care of all the practices that we were onboarding, doing a little bit of their IT, but mostly doing HR and business management functions. And we oversaw all the books and HR and all that kind of stuff for the dental practice. So I kind of fell into it there. We had a pretty successful exit in 2015, and I decided to go back and do my MBA. So I did that 2015, graduated 2016, and then trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I did a little bit of real estate because I've had rental properties and stuff along the way. I figured out how to do real estate in the States from Canada, which was pretty amazing. Expensive, but amazing. And while I was doing that, my lawyers that I work with said that I had to apply for an ITIN, which is basically an international taxpayer identification number, so that I could apply for credit and apply for bank accounts and stuff like that. So they're like, you have to make some money. Okay, well, how am I going to do that from up here and work in the States when I'm not allowed working in the States? They're like, well, why don't you go on Upwork.com and find something that you can do? I'm like, okay. So I started looking through the jobs and found bookkeeping type jobs. I'm like, I can easily do these from Starbucks. I can figure out wherever while I'm traveling and doing my real estate stuff. And it'll give me some of that US income that I need to be able to apply for the ITIN. So that went really well. And I had my consulting business kind of starting back here, which is Centrozone, doing some IT consulting and business process management consulting, which was struggling. People's kind of hesitating to give me the numbers, let me look at their books. Or if they did, when I did look at them, they were terrible. I'm like, okay, you know what? We got to fix your books first. So let's do that. They're like, well, are you a bookkeeper? I'm like, no, but I can figure it out. Right. So let's get it figured out and cleaned up. And then we can start doing some of the consulting stuff afterwards. So it was kind of at that point where I realized this is a full-fledged business. I need to figure out how to scale it. And I started changing the focus. And that's when I kind of came across I Love Bookkeeping, and well, not at that time, BBL at the time.
Right. Right.
I found it through your little 3 video clips, and I was mostly looking at it for the networking side and kind of wanting to refine. I knew how to do the bookkeeping stuff in Canada, but in the US, it's a little bit different. 1099s don't exist up here, and there's a few different nuances, right? So I kind of joined the course to figure out those nuances and to kind of have a little bit more information, but also the network was kind of where I was after. The ability to network with people and have a huge support group that you can kind of refer to and lean on when you have questions, and totally unbiased, and there's no really worry about them stealing your clients or anything like that. So that was kind of a great spot. And when BBL Elite came along, it was a no-brainer to jump on it because I knew it would take me to the next level.
Cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. And here you are. By the way, I love the name Citrosome. And you said that was actually your wife's, right? That was her suggestion there?
Yeah, she picked Citrosome. We were trying to figure out a name. She was doing, her actual degree is biopharmaceutical engineering, which she doesn't do. She's a high school teacher. So, but yeah, she was into science, and we kind of picked centrosome. It's the part of the cell that's in charge of replicating the whole thing. So, and growing it, which was kind of cool. And it kind of fit for the IT world at the time, because that's what that company originally started as. But it makes sense now too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the metaphor there. So would you say that you're a go-getter?
I would definitely. Yeah. And a little bit of, super entrepreneur. I've got a whole bunch of different things on the go at once. I'm not, I guess, employable, as you would say, from that perspective. I've got 8 of my own companies right now, plus Centrosome. So they're different real estate.
Wow.
And we do a little bit of crypto mining and kind of everything. So.
Wow. And in your spare time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have time for any hobbies? Absolutely.
Oh, I do play soccer. Yeah. I play soccer a couple of times a week, goalkeeper. So I don't really have to run around, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. I was about to say, if I played soccer, that would be the one that I would want to be right there. Or the guy who sits on the bench and drinks Gatorade and watches it.
Sure.
I enjoy watching the sport. Just recently here, picking that up because it's not as big here in the States as it is worldwide.
Yeah,
right?
Not here in Canada either.
Well, I think we're making a change there. Hockey would be the national sport in Canada, right?
Of course.
Of course. Yes, it would be. And the Stanley Cup finals are going on right now.
Yep.
As we are recording this. Okay. We digress to get to talking about sports. This is not a sports podcast here. So I like how you're steering, bookkeeping is part of what you're doing, but that you're a one-stop shop. So in addition to the bookkeeping with your business, what are you adding on to business owners?
So I have the ability to kind of set them up with their full office setup. So we can do Office 365, Google G Suite, voice over IP phones. We can kind of basically everything that they need, and the ability to also have a small office even from home. We have that functionality with all the cloud technology that exists today. So the same thing that we can use, we're implementing for some of our smaller clients. And then we also help them with their processes and some business analysis as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a very unique offering. And for everybody listening, this is just a prime example of how bookkeeping can be a great entry point. It can be a great stopping point too for you. It's just opens up so many possibilities because I'll tell you, and you've seen this, Kevin, probably, that bookkeeping is one of those things that's neglected in a business. And even if somebody has a quote unquote, some professional doing the books, it's usually a big mess.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Do you find that in coming around and cleaning up people's books? I know you alluded to that earlier.
Yeah, so we've had a few clients that we've taken on that they've had even a CPA taking care of their books, and they were a mess. They weren't really tended to properly, and I'm pretty sure the CPA that was doing it was just really not interested in it. But the client just said, "Just take care of it. I don't want to deal with it." Right. So they ended up letting that CPA go, and we kind of came in. We spent probably the better part of 7 months cleaning their stuff up to get it all nice and organized. And he's got 2 or 3 different businesses in this particular case as well, using classes to kind of keep them all in the same company. But it was a mess. There was intercompany issues. There was just everything, and it was not fun.
No,
but necessary evil, right? Like we had to get it done so that he could do his taxes properly and get on top of his taxes and his sales tax and stuff too. So that was all a mess and an awry. So,
well, and you were his savior there.
We did. So, yeah. He complains about the bill every time, but
he pays it, right?
He paid it. So
yeah. Well, then he's totally fine with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have an actual physical office? Or
so I do. Yep.
Okay.
I have an office. Right now, I'm actually in the process of looking for a new space. We have, I'm sure you've heard of the Regis Centers. Mm-hmm. So we found one here in Ottawa, and we kind of parked ourselves in there. When I hired my first full-time employee, I needed a spot for them to work. I couldn't have them coming to my house and working in my living room or in my office. That's just weird. Mm-hmm. So I got that space, but I've kind of outgrown it. And the next step up doubles the rent for like 80 more square feet. So that's not really worth it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at something new. And I've also got an intern starting in June.
Okay. All right. And I know that this is going to kind of dovetail into what we're talking about here today, kind of a vision for where you want to take your business. But what's like your favorite thing about having your own business rather than working for somebody else?
I like the autonomy. I can kind of do what I want. This morning I'm here working from home and kind of doing my thing while my staff are at the office and doing their thing, right? And we'll chat later this afternoon. They know not to make my phone ring right now, so...
Yeah.
But and I can go on vacation. I missed the March intensive because my wife and I were in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So it was a tough choice. I had to choose one or the other, and
you made the right choice.
I know. But now I've got a lot of work to do to get caught up, right? That's the only downside. But it's fine. It's great being able to kind of have a Wi-Fi connection and really work from anywhere. I took a new client call from the beach using voice over IP on my cell phone.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what I built this business for. My wife, as a high school teacher, they get taken care of very well up here in Canada.
Good.
So she has her fixed vacations. That's the only downside to it, or March break, Christmas, and then the summer. So I wanted to find something that I wasn't basically tied to just her. Like I would be able to take the vacations with her, basically, is what I'm getting at, right?
Right.
And if I have to work a couple hours in the morning just to get the team going and to do what I have to do, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, and so that's the best thing. So what's a frustrating thing about having your own business?
So many things to do and not enough time to do them would be the biggest thing, right? So I've done a lot of progress towards like outsourcing and VAs and whatnot since coming on and listening to some of Daniel's stuff, and I've got a long way. I've got a lot of processes, but they're not written in such a way that it's scalable. So that's been a big focus, and we're bringing on the intern so she can do some of the bookkeeping stuff while we focus on creating our processes and getting everything systemized. I do it for other people, but I never did it for myself, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah. It's like, when do my taxes and accounting and bookkeeping get done? The very last minute, of course, right? Yeah. They're always on time, but the cobbler's kids have no shoes. It's kind of that same thing. So autonomy on one end, freedom, however that you want to phrase it, that's great. And then just there's a lot to be done and not enough hours in the day and not enough Kevin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you go about selecting like what you're going to work on, like versus with all the different opportunities and things you could be doing? How do you determine what you should be doing?
So I kind of work towards the things that are going to yield an instant result, and the stuff that needs to be focused on now to grow the business is kind of where I've changed my focus, as opposed to just doing the tasks to get them off the list. I've not been very good at delegating. Having the full-time employee has definitely helped me in that regard. Just I can pass a bunch of stuff on to her and she just takes care of them. She's not good at all of them, so I've learned that as well as part of it. She's great at bookkeeping, not so great at the admin tasks, right? So there's no point in sending those to her. She just spends too much time. It's not her forte, right? So there's people out there that's their forte, and now I just have to unlock them and find them, right? And learn to send it out that way. But yeah, that's kind of the focus, is whatever is on the list that's going to kind of get me towards that next step. Listening to some of the other podcasts and networking with a lot of the members of BKE, like we've spent I've spent a good amount of time reflecting and figuring out what I should be working on for the most part. It's just now putting it all into place to get it there.
Yeah. Well, that's very smart because you're working on your business and not just in your business. I'm hearing about the things that you're doing now that are going to set you up for success, and we'll get into your vision here in just a minute. But that is great. You're being intentional about your business, and it's so important because how many clients do you serve right now, Kevin?
So I have 21 official clients. I've got 2 more that I'm onboarding next week, and I've got 8 of my own or 9 of my own companies with Centrosome.
Okay.
That does real estate and rentals and developments and stuff.
Okay. Wow. So that's good. And
it's a lot.
And your clients are pretty in depth, right? These aren't.
I've got a couple that are little kind of mom and pop shops. A couple of them are cleaners. They're very simple. One construction guy, he's just getting started, but eventually he's going to grow, and he needs all the systems in place now to be able to do the same thing we're doing, right? He wants to grow, and we're helping him get there through his accounting and bookkeeping systems.
Got it. Kind of to wrap this segment up of what you got here, but so a lot of people that are listening are considering starting a bookkeeping business, right? And we talk about the qualities of what you need to have and who's a good fit, because most people are not a good fit. Most people should never start a business. But for somebody who has kind of self-qualified, right? They're a go-getter. But what would you say to somebody who's kind of considering this right now? I don't want to say on the fence, but is really considering a bookkeeping business, but just hasn't made that call yet. What would you what advice would you give to somebody who's considering that?
I'd probably have to say, how independent are they at working alone? Like how are they like self-sufficient? Like are they capable of self-directing is really the big question. There's a lot of people that work for themselves and they want that lifestyle. They only want to work 10 to 20 hours a week kind of thing. And they're hoping to get $100,000 a year. Like that's not necessarily going to be possible, right? It depends. If you set the systems up properly, great. But it takes a lot of work to get there. You can't just open the doors and be making $100,000 a year. It just, that math doesn't work. So they have to be willing to put in the hours, especially up front, and then build the systems out so that we can get to the point where it's running itself and we can step out, go on vacation, do whatever we need to do, and the business still runs. Like that's the ultimate vision, but to get there, they have to be prepared to put in the hours.
Yep. The way I say it's a short-term sacrifice, but it's for a lifetime of benefit, right?
Absolutely.
Well, good. All right. So let's change directions here real quick. We've talked about where you are. Let's talk about where you want to go. So, and I know that that's kind of the rub and what we're going to be talking about here, but just from a high level, if you were to lean out 3 years from now and take a look at your business, where would you be? What is it that you want to do?
So I'm still kind of working on that big vision, if you will, and putting the goals down for that. But ultimately, I can see myself having probably 10 to 12 employees, some sort of mix of contractors and full-time employees. I'm not scared of having employees. I've had 300 at one point, so that's not a big deal. And then kind of in terms of revenue, I don't know.
You don't have to share those numbers.
So it would be a healthy number. Let's just put it that. So
okay.
Then I want to work towards our retirement stuff, right? So I want to have the ultimate goal. So if we push it out 5 or 7 years, I want to have a sellable business is what I'm getting to.
Okay. Key point right there. Key takeaway. Whether or not you or anyone else listening is planning on selling their business, if you build it as if you were going to sell it, you're also going to create a lot of sanity and high profitability. So I don't ever want to build a business with the sole intent of selling it. But if you have that in mind, hey, am I doing this to build it to sell it? Then you're going to create sanity for yourself. And I'll explain that here in just a minute. So, okay. All right. So you want to create that's sellable, and you're probably looking at, you said 5 to 7 years, somewhere out in there. Okay. All right. And so I'll give you a pat on the back, because the things that you're doing now, creating the systems, the processes, bringing on other people, creating a true business and not a job, right? And that's fine. Some people want to create a business that's really owning a job. So you want to earn an extra $1,000 a month. That's kind of like freelancing, right? That's totally fine. But in your case, you want to build a true business, a mini empire is what we call it. That means that it's free of your day-to-day. People don't really have to ask you questions about day-to-day type of operations. You and your wife could leave for a month and come back, and the business would be running fine, and you would be collecting a check. And clients wouldn't be, screaming and hollering. Matter of fact, it would probably be just the opposite. I know that when I leave, the things get done probably better because I get out of the way. That's a true business. And that's something that is sellable. Whereas if it requires all of my effort and I have to be there, that business is still worth something, but it's worth a fraction of what it's going to be if you have a business. So that's good. And it's awesome that you know that right up front. But it's also yeah.
Right, with our exit.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So you probably have gone through those pains one time, right? And learned from them. And then here you are with this business. Okay. So one of the things that I would tell you and suggest is that, you said, I want 10 to 12 employees. I challenge you on that. You don't want 10 to 12 employees. You want what 10 to 12 employees is going to do for your business, right? So rather than saying, hey, here's a metric and I want to meet that, really, what's the desire? What's the desired outcome here?
I guess it would be the output that 10 to 12 employees would give, basically. So if you think of it in terms of hours a week,
revenue.
Like that's a lot of clients, right? Like we're not talking maybe 30 or 40 clients. We're probably talking a couple hundred clients. It's kind of where that's getting to.
Okay. And those couple hundred clients are actually leading to a revenue goal.
Right.
And more important, to a profitability goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at this point, you're building your business. I make the assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not about income anymore. It's not like you're needing this to put food on the table and all that.
Not.
Okay. All right. So that's a good position to be in, right? Because you don't have to take on clients you don't want to. You can kind of set your trajectory as aggressive or as conservative as you want it to be. But it sounds like you want to be pretty aggressive in that, which is good. So one thing I always encourage people to do is to think about their life first, right? Like leaning out that 3 years. Let's just take a 3 year from now, is to say, what does my life look like? Okay. Is it that, okay, every time that your wife is on break from school, that you can be on break totally? That's important right there. Because we want to start with this. And the reason why I want you to start with this, and you would want to start with this, is because you want to create this business that's going to support the lifestyle that you want to lead, and not have a life where you go, all right, well, this business runs my life. And so therefore I can only do vacation during this time and all this. So really starting with that vision for what your life is going to be like, financially, and then saying, okay, well, if we want to have our retirement funded, then I'm going to have to earn this kind of money. You're doing the same thing that you're doing now, except we're just turning it upside down.
Right.
We're saying, here's what we want. Here's why we're going to do it. And the reason that I suggest that you do that, and I do that, and anybody who has a vision, is that that's what's going to fuel us, right? A number is a cold, unemotional thing.
Right.
I want to get to 10 employees. I want it to be a $1 million a year top line company. Those are all great, and we should have those, but we need to really turn it upside down and go, with 10 employees, that means that I don't have to do any of the day-to-day stuff. I literally could check in once a month to make sure that all the trains are running on time and all the, everything's happening. But other than that, I don't have to do anything. That's, and that means that I would need 10 employees, and they would be broken down like 2 managers and 4, all this different stuff. You break it down that way, because this is what's going to help you and fuel you through those times in which things get tough, right? In this business, things get tough. It's not all puppy dogs and rainbows and unicorns. Everything's not perfect. Right. So, and that, right? And you have that drive and you have that wherewithal that when things get tough, you just keep going anyway, right? You back up, maybe pause, take a break, reconsider how you're doing things and move forward. But really, really thinking about it from that angle would be how I would do that first. And then building this business out to support that lifestyle. So for instance, let's say that you have a certain metric, like I want to sell, and I'm just throwing this out there, in 7 years, I want to sell this business for $1 million. Okay, great. Well, that means, the $1 million, what's that going to do? Well, that means it's going to be able to pay off all of our debt. We're going to be able to put away, $500,000 in retirement. We're going to be able to do these things. And then at age, whatever, in 7 years you are, this is where I'm going to be positioned. Okay. And so now what we're doing is we're reverse engineering, getting to that point where you can sell a business for $1 million. But this is what it's really going to do for your life when you get that big payout. Right? Because a lot of people, you already have this in mind because you've experienced it firsthand. They don't realize that the real value in a business, so the biggest payday, if you build a business and not just a job, is when you sell it.
Yep.
And so you've already got that kind of paradigm there. So that's kind of the first step that I would tell you in that. And it sounds like with your wife helping you to name the business, is she involved in any way with the business?
Other than the naming, 2001 was when we created this company. No,
right.
She has no interest in it whatsoever, and she's there for the kids in high school and teaching and stuff like that. So that's her passion, and she doesn't like the business world too much at all. So
right.
She also doesn't love the real estate stuff that I do, but that's okay.
Right.
She understands it's what I like to do, and it's working. So keeps me out of busy and out of trouble, as I like to say.
Yeah, a rolling stone gathers no moss, right? Yeah, absolutely. An idle mind does not go to places it should not go to. Okay, that's good. One thing that I would encourage you, though, even though that she's not involved in the business, she is involved in the life that the business is going to support.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We chat, we've been chatting about the real estate stuff and where we're going to look for a new space and how far I have to drive and all that kind of stuff. So she's still involved in those kind of decisions, just not in the operational decisions at all.
Right. And that's the higher level type of stuff, the things that are going to involve her. So whenever there is a spouse, I always encourage that both of us are on the same page when it comes to the vision for our life, so that our spouse also understands when we're having to work that 12-hour day that, hey, the reason that I'm doing that is to get us to this point in our life where we want to be, and it's not going to be this way. We said it was going to last for this amount of months, right? And so we got 3 more months to get past that, but having them involved, and not just from an information standpoint, but from a buy-in standpoint. Mm-hmm. And I'm the last person in the world that you want to take marital advice from, being a divorced guy. Okay. So you don't want to take marital advice, but I can tell you just from the perspective of, hey, having both partners on the same path and having the same vision, that is the most crucial element right there, I can tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
And it sounds like you guys are on that same.
We're pretty much on that same page. Our retirement, for the most part, is pretty good as it is.
Right.
Teachers, like I said, are well taken care of here in Ontario. So she gets a great pension, 95% of her top 5 years of earning for the rest of her life. So can't really complain with that. Yeah. Can't complain with that at all. So
No, not at all. Not at all. So that's kind of the first thing, and being, instead of a top down, it's kind of a bottom up. Mm-hmm. And by the bottom, I mean of what this is going to do for our lives.
Yep. Yeah, we definitely want to travel. That's kind of our big thing. So having the ability to still have that cash flow coming in, and we'll have some of it from her retirement side, but I don't really want to retire at 75. I'd rather retire much sooner than that, so we can enjoy the time to travel and see the things and do what we want to do. Right.
Yeah. So I would be putting specific metrics. I want to be able to retire by the age of 60, and that means this. And, again, you and your spouse being involved in that decision, and, okay, what's the plan now to get that, to fuel it? And this is what the business is going to have to do. Mm-hmm. Because that's just making that small shift. And it's like a duh, right? We hear that, and I hear that, and I'm like, oh, should have started that way.
Yeah. It's the way I see it is writing down your why, right? Why you're doing what you're doing.
Yep, absolutely. And keeping it in front of you, literally, as I sit here at my very fancy basement office, I have a panel of it's probably 12 feet long, 8 feet high, of white boards. And I just erased all of it yesterday, but because I want to write on it again today. I look like the crazy guy in A Beautiful Mind, just writing all over it like a crazy person. But anyway, I keep kind of the big things right up there in the upper left-hand corner. And literally, as I sit here, I can look at them. You can see my eyes. People on podcasts can't see them, but I'm keeping that in front of me all the darn time. And I don't even really it's subconscious if my eyes go over it, but it's building in this reinforcement inside of my head that this is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep. I have it at my home office. I don't have that at the work office just because I don't really want that there. And we have clients in every now and again. So they don't need to see that.
Right. Yeah. You got, but putting it in different places and reinforcing that and always adjusting back towards it. And I don't know if I recommended this to you while we were at the intensive, but there's a book called Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it.
He's a fellow Canadian. You should definitely get your hands on that. It's a pretty easy read. We just got through doing our Vivid Vision. I've owned my own businesses for almost 20 years now, and I've never had anything like this. And I kind of poo-pooed it, but it was something when you go through the process that you share not only with your team, but you share it with your spouse in your case, you share it with your vendors, you share it with your customers. And when we did this exercise at our last team retreat, their eyes just went, wow, I didn't know that's where you wanted to go. And I was like, really? I thought that I'd said that. Nope, I hadn't. And it's just encapsulating. And what it really does for you, for your team, for everybody who has a vested interest in this vision, it gives them guidelines. It helps them to buy in. It helps you to filter out people who are not good fit for your business as team, as customers. It helps you just to have a roadmap, a decision guide. And if there's ever a question by you, by one of your employees, you can always say, well, is this supporting our vivid vision or is it detracting because it's doing one or the other? Right. So I would encourage you to go through that process. It's pretty simple. Like everything, I'm lazy. I don't want to type it out. I don't want to write it out. I just want to speak it. So that's what I do. I fire up my screen or speak it, or in this case, I actually spoke it to my team, had it transcribed, and now I'm having a professional copywriter put it together. But everybody is loving it. And I thought it would be like, oh, yeah, okay, thanks for sharing that, Ben. And unless they're being totally just blowing sunshine up my dress here, then they really, really like it, they being their team. And we can't wait to share it with other people. So I'd encourage you to do that. And everybody who has a big vision, whether it's a big or a small, it doesn't matter. You have a vision, go through this process. That's a vivid vision. I'll insert my affiliate link below to Cameron. No, I'm just kidding. But that's a great book. You can get it off of pretty easy read.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, right there. With a guy like you, Kevin, it's like, You don't need to be on a podcast with me getting like sage advice, like little things like you're going to accomplish your vision, right? I think it's for you, it's just being very solid with what that vision is, being like day to day solid. Like this means that if I want to sleep in till 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, I can do that, right? Or if I want to stay up till 3 in the morning, whatever the case may be, if I decide if the kids and if your wife and kids are out of school and you decide, hey, let's go on a trip next week. Let's get in the car and just drive across Canada. You can do that. Like that's how granular I would get with my vision because that's life.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. And all these visions of grandeur, like, these abstract things that aren't in our day-to-day life, our brain has a hard time of latching onto that. But it can latch onto the fact that you've always wanted to get in your car and just drive. That's something it can latch on to. And that's something that understands the sacrifice that you're making to get to the point where you can do that. Right. So, I wish that I could tell you that I have all these ninja tactics and things that I could tell you to accomplish your vision, but you're going to do it. And the only thing I would just tell you is to be specific about what it is.
Yeah, I definitely need to focus more on the specifics. And that's kind of what came out of meeting with you guys and Ross specifically when I was chatting with him when we were in Denver. So
right.
That's kind of niche was one thing, or niche, however you want to say it. That was one thing, but I think I've pretty much nailed that. And I'm just going to focus on that now. And I've got a backup one in my pocket if I decide to need more clients or want to start growing another arm, if you will.
Right.
But definitely focusing, I've refocused the business primarily as a bookkeeping and accounting type style company. Which has the ability to offer all of these other services as we get there, but I'm not advertising them, not really sharing them too much. They're a little page on the website in case anybody stumbles across it, but that's kind of really all it is, and it'll become for the next little bit because I find it doesn't help people as much. Like anybody can go and sign up for Office 365 on their own. Like they don't need somebody to help them with that. Some do, some don't. but everybody needs help with bookkeeping, and they just have to get to the point in their business where they realize they need it, right? Because that's kind of one of the challenges that's a lot of entrepreneurs have. Well, I can do it all myself, and I don't really have the money to spend, and like we got to change that mindset, if anything.
Right.
Because wasting an hour on bookkeeping for somebody when you're building your business instead, that's a better use of your time to build your business than doing your books or other admin tasks.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would encourage you to do, I don't know if you're like me, and I feel like I say this on half the podcasts that we ever record here, is really acknowledging what you've done up to this point. You know, I mean, between your previous business that you had to exit and then this one, building it to where you've gotten it in such a relatively short period of time. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's huge, right? And you're not going back and saying, well, look how, awesome I am. Well, you kind of are, though.
Sure.
Because you've done a lot of good. And that, right now what you're doing is you're in an elite territory. Very few people get their business to the mini empire level, which is where you are. And now you want to take it to an empire level. You want to be Darth Vader, right? And have this massive industry, this massive business that's serving a lot of people in a good way, right?
Right. Yeah.
The good Darth Vader.
Exactly.
The one they had to burn at the end of episode 6 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But I'm nerding myself out totally
just
here.
Just a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah, just a little bit. Thank you. I can nerd out a little bit on Star Wars.
Yep.
That's really it. So any specific questions for me that I can answer on your vision?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think I need to be very specific. And that was kind of one of my initial questions, is like, how specific do you get? But now I'm thinking kind of like as specific as you need it to be to get yourself there, right? Is kind of the self-realization of that. So it's just figuring it out and then involving the team a little bit more, right? Like I have one full-time employee right now, but we're looking at a new space and I'm doing kind of the pre-screening, and then eventually I'm going to bring her to come take a look at the space and make sure that she vets it as well. So she's part of the decision and all that kind of stuff, right? And so including them more than just being a staff member, right? Like I don't really call her my employee. I always call her my team member, right? So it's a different mindset, and I think it's better for her and it's better for clients, and it just makes it feel a lot more cohesive. So I guess I don't really have a lot of questions per se that way. Like my biggest win with finding this group is the network, right? Like having the ability to chat with certain individuals and like-minded individuals, most importantly, because bookkeeping is a niche of its own, and not everybody loves it, right? So, and there's days where I can absolutely say like, I don't love bookkeeping, but it's a great business, and if you do it right, it can make some really good money. So if you're trying to...
I can't believe you just said, I don't love bookkeeping on the I Love Bookkeeping show.
It's more some of the functions of bookkeeping that I don't love, right? Like it's not...
Yeah, no.
Like the task overall and helping the owners figure out their business and through their numbers, that's the part that I love, right? And that's what bookkeeping brings for most people if it's done right.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I'll just give you a little glimpse, and not to tease everybody else here in the audience, but during the November intensive, one of the things that we're going to work through is creating that vivid vision. We're going to actually go through the exercise. So if you've already done yours, you'll kind of have a leg up there, or any kind of attempt at it. But and then we're going to boil that down and bring it into like 3 years out, 2 years out, 1 year out, 6 months out.
Awesome.
So that you kind of can put legs underneath it for 2020. Which is what will kind of be the first full year of that. It's crazy to say we're going to be in 2020, but wow, that's just around the corner for us.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. I mean, I really only started bookkeeping in 2017 in November, right? So that's not a long time. So
that is crazy. That is good. Congratulations, you've done a lot of good, Kevin. Now I know that we've got your website here. It's centrosome.com. That's CEN. CENTROSOME.ca. Yes, .ca, not .com.
.biz there. Also works.
.biz also works right there. So you can check out Kevin's website there. I'm sure it's pretty awesome. And I appreciate you playing along with us today, Kevin, on the I Love Bookkeeping show.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Listen, if you would like to hear more great conversations just like today's, then I want you to head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com. There, you're going to find all of the shows, the notes, and some other great goodies that we have for you there. Now, if you'd like to be a guest on the I Love Bookkeeping show, there is a link that says Be a Guest. Go in there and we'll walk you through the process of getting on the show. And finally, to discover more about our programs, go to the courses page on the ilovebookkeeping.com site. There you have it, another great episode of I Love Bookkeeping. Thank you for being a proud listener, and thank you for being a bookkeeping professional. Enjoy the rest of your week.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks. Be a money guide, a profit coach, step up your game